Just need to mute the recording so that it does not interfere with my voice. Okay. All right, so everybody has the data set? Yes? No? What we're gonna do today is we're gonna place doors, we're gonna place windows, and we're gonna place curtain walls. I think as you can tell from the 3D view here, the geometry has come very clean as a result of using the appropriate wall connections. If you recall, these walls are meter at a corner. I show you the process of controlling the wall intersections. And then because I use the same wall family for the roof, all the sections in the project came very clean. And they display a very sharp line weight, which is sort of ready for this type of presentation style. Okay, so today we're gonna place artifacts in the walls, and we're gonna start by switching to level 1. So make sure you pick the floor plan level 1 and not the ceiling plan level 1. Otherwise, it will display differently. I'm going to start my Sumit app. This FYI, if you're curious what I use to like sketch on top of the user interface, there's a free add-in called Sumit, and when I click Control D, I can do this sketch on top of everything. I find it very useful to do instructions, and if you're interested or if you do this at work, just Google Zoomit, and it's a free add-on. All right, so our walls have been coordinated. In order to display the visibility of the image in the background, you may want to switch the view control to wireframe. And notice how there's no solid representation of anything, and the image in the background still transfer across. And if you notice, we have additional walls that we need to build for the restroom enclosures, and then there is a couple of storefronts that need to be added here, and some windows as well. And the size of the windows, we can extract it from the elevations. If you zoom into the image on the right side, the typical, there are 3 different types of windows, or I think 2, 5.6 by 5.6 window. And let me pin this image so it doesn't get moved. This is the way you pin. Oops. I'm going to pin it so it doesn't get moved. And then we have a smaller size window that is 2.6 by 2.6. All right. So I think last time I showed you the process of creating new types based on an existing one. And if you recall, I'm going to put this again. You select a, well, the simplified recipe is you duplicate a type, rename, and then change parameter values. And this creates new types based on an existing one. Values. So we're going to do this process to create the windows. I know these windows, I have a 5.6 by 5.6 windows, a 2.6 by 2.6 windows, but that specific size is not loaded into the project. So I'm going to get started with a generic window, and then I'm going to apply the recipe of creating new types. So on the project browser, let's scroll down to your window family. This is the category of windows. Under the fixed windows, these are all the different sizes. And then a 5.6 by 5.6 is 66 by 66 inches window. And these are the types available in the project. And I don't have the exact size that I need for the project specifications. And so this is the Revit 101. We create new types based on existing ones. And the process is duplicate the type, rename it, and then change the parameter values. So I'm going to start with 24 by 24. And last time, when we were creating walls, remember we click on a wall, we edit the type properties, we duplicate, rename, and then we change the parameter values. This is one way of creating new types based on a selection on the screen. We selected a wall in the view. Another way of creating new types is via the project browser. I don't have any windows in the project, but I can use this right click. I can use the right click menu to duplicate a type. And you can do this with walls as well. So select the 24 by 24, right click, duplicate, and we're going to name it accordingly. And this is a 5.6 by 5.6 window that is 66 inches by 66 inches, just to keep the naming convention in alignment with the types standards. Just click outside to accept. This is a new type that is exactly the same mirror image of the 24 by 24. And now I need to access the type properties. And to do that, just double click the type. So in this new type, double click it. And this gives you access to the type properties. And the width, it's 66 inches. So type 66 inches. Make sure you put the inches so it doesn't do it. And then the height is the same. 66 inches, or you can also type 5 space 6. And there you go. I have a new window that has a different size, is new. It's an available type that you can drag and drop into the project. Any question here?
I think we wanted to change the sill height to 3'6" or 3.0 because
all right. If it's all clear, now do one on your own. Create the 2.6 by 2.6 window, a 30 by 30, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that on your own. I'm not going to give instructions because you know how to do that, right? So that's the other type of window that the project needs. Anyone done already? Yes, yes, yes. And Mafia as well. All right, I'll do it myself. I'll start with the 24 by 24, right click, duplicate. And this one is going to be 30 by 30, 30 inches by 30 inches. This is the name of the new type based on the 24 by 24. This new copy is exactly the same copy as the 24 by 24. The last step is to change the parameter values. So you double click on the type to access the type properties. And I'm going to change the width and the height parameter. So 30 inches on the width and 30 inches in the height. Apply, ready, cool. So I created new types. The 30 by 30, it's a new type available in the private browser. The 66 by 66 is also available in the type properties. Okay, so these types are ready to be placed in the project. The big windows goes, there's one goes here, another go here, another go here, and then there are 3 smallish windows that goes in this other's wall. And the process of placing families is just a drag and drop operation. So grab the 66 by 66 from the project browser, click it and drag it. You see the cursor is going to turn into this plus sign. And I'm going to place the one first below here. You can actually see you have to click to finish the operations. For Revit, when it finds a space like that, it automatically snaps to the middle of the space. And you can use these temporary dimensions, those blue temporary dimensions, to make sure that the wall is at the center of the space, right? And so you almost feel like as you move the mouse, that the wall snap to the center. There you go. I'm going to escape here and pause just to show some of the properties of this window. This window has some instance properties. It has a level, it has a sill height. And this is the distance between the level and the sill of the window. If we look at the elevation, the sill height is 1'6", typical for this window. So you select the window here and change the sill height to 1'6". This is the sill height, 1'6". And this is going to change the elevation of the wall. After you do that, 1'6", hit enter. Select it, 1'6", enter. And we're going to do the same process for the other couple of windows. So let's do the one on the window between the space between 3 and 4. Grab the 66 by 66, drag it, drop it. Escape. And then select the window and change the sill height, 1'6". Enter. Okay.
Cesar, I have a quick
One
question.
of the properties, actually, you asked if we have to change the sill height. We just did that.
I have a quick question about the window. So these little tiny squares that are at the corner, does it matter what's looking
All
inside?
right. I think, were you guys speaking to me? I'm sorry. I think I might not be hearing you, and that is correct. Let me change my speaker to, there it is, speaker scenario. Can anyone speak up?
Can you hear us now? Can you hear
No,
us?
still no.
Mm.
Let's see. And maybe, oh, my speakers are very low.
Can you hear us now?
I hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, Ashley, if you were speaking to me and I
No,
couldn't.
no, I think it was just Jim and Xiaohan. Sorry.
One, yeah. I had a question about the window.
Mhm.
The little squares that are at the corners of the window, does it matter what's on the inside and on the outside? I guess I'm just not familiar with this kind of block, so.
That's a good question. And so these are the mullions of a window. And depending on the climate in which you are, and you guys may correct me, sometimes the alignment of the glass, it's either preferred to the interior side or the exterior side. I don't know if there's a technical argument about that. Maybe Jim knows better.
I don't think it's much, but I have the same issue. It's flipped on the second one. I
Yeah.
think that's what
And so the
Sarah's talking about.
windows have this double arrow, which is just like the walls, the location of the exterior side. And so if you double click, if you just click on that, if you select the wall, the window and click on that double arrow, it would flip it along its location line. And I think technically a window, the exterior side of a window receives the closest distance from the edge. That's the way this block was, this this tool, because it allow you this tool, because it allow you to create a 3D representation of the selection with a predefined boundary offset. So select it, click this, and when you switch to 3D, you have this isolated object in a bounded box that is, I think, 1 foot away from the geometry. And you have a way to understand its unique properties in 3D. It's used a lot just for visual check that where you're actually doing in plan is making sense in 3D. To disable the section box, you can disable this checkbox in the 3D view. And then that's going to return it to its full height, full extent. All right, see the whole thing. So use it as a way to isolate an object. We do it a lot when doing restrooms. You're placing things in plan. They may or may not be in the right height. And if you want to see the context in 3D or how it relates with other parts of the model, then you can create a section box. All right, but back to your questions. Yes, you can flip the direction of a wall by clicking this double arrow. Also, I think if you access the type properties, there is a property in the type that is called the window inset. This controls what is the relative location of the glass panel to the edge of the window. So if we make this, for example, 0 or 2 inches, and just hit apply. So you understand when you hit apply, you can preview the change without exiting the dialog box. If you hit OK, it will apply the change and it will close the dialog box. So sometimes it's nice to see the apply button and try different values before closing the dialog box. So if I do this, notice how the glass pane is shifted towards the interior. But I'm going to cancel it and leave it the way it was. This is just ways in which you can play with the type properties and make changes in the family. I'm just going to leave it as it was. So I'm going to undo and leave this as it was. I think it was 3/4 of an inch, which 3/4 of an inch is the distance between the face of the exterior frame and the molding itself. Any question? All right, let's place now the, there's another window. There's two small little windows, three small little windows. These are the 30 by 30. It's 2'6" height. That's the sill height. And then these are like high level windows. The sill height is 9'4". So let's do the actually this is big. This is the big one. That window is yeah, let's place the smaller one and then we change it in height. So drag and drop the 30 by 30 that we just created. And again, depending on, you see my mouse, if my mouse is like closer to the exterior wall, then that's the exterior side. If the mouse is closer to the interior side, that is the exterior side of the, so it's mind your click location relative to the cursor. You can always invert it later if you press, if you flip it, use the flip control. And then let's change this, the sill height. The sill height of this is 2'6". 2'6". There's another one at this location. Same thing, drag and drop it. You can also change the sill height before you place it or afterwards. In this case, I'm doing it afterwards. Oh, this one already I placed it. Where's the other one? It's here. So notice how this is the west elevation. If you look at the west elevation, yeah, this is the small little window over here. Now the south elevation is showing a big window in a clerestory window on the south side, which is right here. The cut plane in this floor plan prevents you from checking that window, but I know it's here because the elevation show it. It's right here. And the sill height is 9'4" from level 1. So we're going to drop another window here with a sill height of 9'4". This is a 66 by 66. It's in the living room. Let's drag it and drop it. I think it goes aligned with the You can flip it using the flip control. And yep. And so the north elevation also display a clerestory window that is in this location here. I'm going to put another 66 by 66 right here. Also, remember to change the sill height. The sill height is 9'4". It's going to disappear from the view because the cut line at 4 foot is not intersecting with the window. So same thing here. Change the sill height to 9'4". It's gonna raise it in elevation, but let's check the elevations. You can open from the project browser the south elevation. Here's the north elevation. I think that's correct. That looks approximately what the design intent is. In the south elevation, notice that the south elevation looks like truncated. There's nothing wrong here. Well, there's something wrong, but it's not as bad as it looked like. What's happening on level 1 is that there are elevation markers that are not correctly positioned. And the elevator markers are hidden in this view. To get the elevator's markers back, you can just click on the light bulb. This is going to display the categories that are frozen in the view. Gee, I don't see them here. Let's go visibility graphics. Oh, wait a second.
They're there. You just have to zoom out.
Right. Thank you. And so these are the elevation markers. The elevation markers has elevation symbol, which is that square that you see here. And then the arrow is the elevation view. Those are two different objects, but they work in tandem. You can click on the arrow to display the elevation. You double click it will take you to the east elevation. I'm going to close it. So notice what happened when you select the elevation marker and drag it in. You might think, oh, I'm changing the elevation view as well. Well, that's not correct. All I did is move the elevation marker, but notice how that blue line that is there, that is the elevation view location, and that was left behind. And so be careful when we move elevation markers, because the way to move them is you select two objects, the marker and the view, both things. And then you make it closer to the building as needed. Same here, select two elevation. I do a window selection to select two objects. Notice that one is the elevation marker and the other is the elevation view. And you just drag it, relocate it to where it's closer to the geometry. And I think that's what's happening here. When you select the elevation marker, notice the view depth. The view depth is how deep you can see in an elevation. And this double arrow here, it tells you how deep the elevation is. I think we need to change that. So select both elements and move it closer. And same here. And after doing that, click on the arrow. And now the elevation is the way it needs to be. You all with me here? Okay. So that is the that was the issue. That was the. That's how we place components in a floor plan. Now let's build the interior.
Hi, Cesar.
Yes.
My south elevation is just showing one part of the building, but not the rest of the building.
Yeah.
And-
So what I explained earlier is that select both elements in this select the marker and the view
Mhm.
from the plan and drag it into. Make sure when you select the view that the view depth is deep enough so that it captures the entire building. The view depth is controlled visually by this double arrow. And you can select it when you select the arrow in the key.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
These, the distance, the view depth, which is this distance from here to here, is called the view depth. It's also an instance property of the view. Is you can manually define it in the view properties. Actually, it's called far clip offset. This is how far in the horizontal you can let an elevation to be displayed. And you can do it manually by dragging this double arrow, or you can just type a distance. Okay, any other question? All right, so we have the windows in place. Now let's talk about curtain walls. So our little cottage is shaping up, looking closer to what it needs to be. Let's switch to the ground. Let's switch to the ground level and talk about curtain walls. So I'm going to bring my PowerPoint here 1 second. All right, a curtain wall, it's a system family. It's part of the wall category, but it's a little different because it's a system family that is made of component families. So the components of the wall can be loaded and saved in an external file, but the assemble itself, it's a system family that lives only within the project. And a curtain wall can be subdivided by curtain grids. The curtain grids create some panels. Then the curtain grid also serve as an extrusion path for a mullion profile. A mullion profile, it's a component that you can create in a family editor and bring from a library. So the mullion, it's a component family. It's an RFA. And then the curtain panel itself can be swapped from one type to another. The curtain panel can be external file as well. And so there are two methods of creating curtain walls. And the method depends what is your starting family. And so the most typical one, it's a family called storefront. It has nothing to do with the way we understand storefront in the construction environment. So the family that's called a storefront, it's a parametrically created representation of a curtain wall. And the subdivisions of the storefront, both in the horizontal and the vertical, are defined by a dialog box. You don't model anything manually. You basically tell the storefront properties what are the rules of division in the horizontal and the verticals, and this is the easiest way of create a curtain wall. You can create it. It's parametrically created, but it's also very simple. It just follows a set of equally spaced panels at a certain distance. The second method, which is the custom, and you should take note because this is in the test, maybe next week. This is the easy method. And then the custom creator one, which is this one. This is the difficult method. Difficult, and this is easy. The manual method of doing curtain walls, it's a little more it requires more modeling from the user. A user creates basically a gigantic piece of glass and then manually subdivide it in subpanels by creating manual curtain grids. The user define each of them one by one at a certain distance, and then the user build the mullion on top of the grids. And so the custom creator method that is based on a family called curtain wall 1, that takes more time to create. Whereas the storefront, it's based on a rule set that's parametrical created, and you can create it in 2 seconds. And which method you use depends on what is the design intent of your project. So let's explore, let me show you how the method works. The complex method works. The custom curtain wall, you start by creating a wall using the curtain wall 1 type, which is going to create a gigantic piece of glass. You can define the width and the height, or you can customize its shape by accessing the sketch line. Then you manually place the horizontal and vertical mullions. Mullions are created across the entire length of the surface, and every time these grids intersect, they create subpanels. Then you place mullions, and they can be several profiles depending on the mullion, what is the performance of the mullion, whether it's a sill or a jamb or a header or an intermediate one, or is serving any purpose. If you look at the shop drawings of curtain profiles, you can see that they may have slight variations, and you can be as detailed as needed to display a specific profile. And then you can place interior mullions in the horizontal, interior mullions in the vertical, sill and jam mullions with different profiles. This is a manual method, so it's more time consuming. And then finally, you can pick a panel and swap it with a different family. The doors are not actually our typical doors. The doors in curtain walls, it's a panel type. So we need to load a special door built for curtain walls, select the panel and swap it. That's the way we add entry doors to curtain wall. All right, this is the manual process. Manual, custom, hard. This is the hard method because it's more involved. It's more involved, but it gave you greater flexibility. Then you can create custom patterns that you can't do out of the box. Is not, you can do a combination of different color types of glazing, different type of doors. So this gives you more flexibility than the parametric method. All right, so let's play around on a side, and let's play with curtain walls. So I am in level 1 in the project browser, and I'm going to build, just create a wall. Hit the wall tool, and then in the type selector, in this list of available types, let's scroll all the way to the bottom of this list. And here you have 3 out of the box family. So the storefront family, this is the easy one. It's parametrically, it takes 2 seconds to build. The manual method is the curtain wall one. This is manual. And then the exterior glazing, the one you see here, this is just used for roofs. So if you needed to build a curtain wall in a roof that acted as a roof, just build it as an exterior glazing. And the reason that it accepts slopes. The other ones do not. All right, so let's do an easy one. Let's pick the storefront. This wall, it's hosted on level 1. One of the limitations of the curtain walls is that they're always center to the geometry. Like you cannot have finish face as a location line or interior or exterior face. It's by default only on the center. You can increase the unconnected height. I'm going to increase it to 40. And I'm going to create it. It's a 2-point method in the draw tools. So pick one point, pick another point, escape. You can switch to a 3D view and see what you just did create. This is a curtain wall, and I didn't do really anything. It was automatically segmented in horizontal and vertical intervals. You can change the shape of a wall by selecting the outermost envelope. So if you hover over a curtain wall, notice those double lines. That is a visual cue that you're selecting the entire assembly, and you can increase or decrease the height of the unconnected height as needed. Now, when you hover over, Revit cycles across different elements. Like if you zoom in, this is how you select a mullion. And notice that the mullion is grayed out, but it gives you the name. It's a rectangular mullion. Its profile is 2.5 by 5. And the reason that it's grayed out is because it's a pin object. And what a pin object means is that the location, the size, and the distribution of these mullions are driven by the parent assembly. So Revit has control of this mullion. And that's why it's grayed out, and that's why it's pinned. Now, when you hover over, also notice that you approach the edge of a panel, you can select the curtain wall grid. The curtain wall grid is this vertical line that subdivide the wall in different panels. The curtain grid, it's also driven by Revit. Here is an horizontal one. It has a system pin. You can change it manually. And then this is something you're going to do a lot with curtain walls, and this is cycling the selection. So when you hover the edge of a panel and hit the tab key, take a look at this part of the user interface. You hover over and then hit tab and then hit tab again. The mouse is not moving at all, but every time you hit tab once, Revit started cycling on everything that is underneath the pointer. So this is the entire wall system. This is a curtain wall grid. I hit tab again. This is the wall mullion. I hit tab again. That's the storefront. And so you're going to use this method of tab select to arrive to your selection. And over time, it's going to become something easy to use. As a first timer, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. Make sure the cursor is pointing to an edge of a panel and you hit tab, 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 tab. And when a panel highlights, this is a panel family. The name of the panel is, well, where did this come from? The name of the family is System Panel Glazed. It's grayed out because it has a system pin. This is a question for the test next week. Why element in a curtain grid are grayed out? Because they have a system pin applied to that. What that means is that Revit has control over its location and size. All right, so
Cesar, I have a question. I don't know why I cannot select anything inside the curtain wall.
yeah, that's a good question. The selection controls enable the user ability to enable or disable the user ability to select pin objects. And so because some of these elements are pinned, you see this pin that is right here. If this has an little X, you won't be able to select anything that is pinned. But if you disable it, then you will be able to select. That works. And this is like no, it's a foolproof restriction. Sometimes is used to prevent users from picking things like grids or levels that are pinned, so no one's moved them. Yeah. All right, so if you have that problem like Mafi, make sure that your pin selection control has a little X. That means it's disabled. That means that you can't pick pin objects. All right, let's look at some of the, if you select the curtain wall and you grab the location grip, you can extend it. You can decrease the size. But the subdivision of this panel is responding to type properties. And so select the entire assembly. This is the outermost boundary. And then hit the edit type button to access the type properties. These are the rules of subdivision of these curtain wall. And the vertical grid is controlled by a distribution of vertical grids with a maximum spacing of 5. So it's equally subdivided up to 5 feet. The horizontal grids have a fixed distance of 8 feet. And if you notice, there is a residual panel at the very top. This is R, a residual. And then everything here is 8, 8, 8, 8. Right. The residual is at the top. Then it has mullion profiles, which are identified by name. And so there are vertical mullions and horizontal mullions. And they are identified as interior, border 1, border 2, interior, border 1, border 2. What does that mean? So border 1, when you create a wall, you pick one point, right? And then you pick another point. That's point number 1. And then this point number 2. So when I created this wall, this was point number 1. And this is point number 2. And so vertical mullion border 1 is this one. It's the jamb of the first point. I don't know. I think the developer didn't find a better way of naming that mullion, because it's hard to tell right or left when you create this in space. But border 1, it's the first vertical mullion. That is this one. Now, vertical border 2 is this one. This is vertical 2. This is vertical border 1. All right, horizontal mullions is the same thing. Border 1 is the sill. So this is horizontal 1, border 1. And then border 2 is the one at the top. So border 2 is the header. Confusing maybe, but I think programmatically it just makes sense. It depends on the creation of the wall. So one respond to the first point to the wall when it was created, and 2 respond to the second point when the wall was created. And then interior type is everything in between. Vertical, this one, this one. These are the horizontal border 1 interior ones. And then these ones are the vertical ones, vertical interiors. And so for each of them, you can have a different profile, that is created based on a component family. Okay, so the rules of spacing varies. These are all the different rules. You can have none, what means it won't have any vertical grid. You can have maximum spacing or minimum spacing. Maximum spacing is distribute a number of grids up to a certain maximum. Minimum spacing is distribute an equal number of mullions with a minimum size. Fixed number, it's create a fixed number of subdivisions. Fixed distance, it fixes the size of each of the panels. There's going to be a residual both in the horizontal and the vertical. And none means that there's nothing. Okay, I don't want to make changes to this storefront because I'm making changes to an existing type. And so I'm going to duplicate it and rename it. And this one is going to be curtain, custom curtain wall. I'm just going to call it custom CW. And I'm making a copy of an existing type so that I don't mess the original one. And now that I have this copy of the type, I can play with the layouts. And so let's play with the vertical grid. Let's say I don't want any layout. Select none and then hit apply. Why didn't go out? I think I need to hit OK. Then this is telling me it's gonna delete some grid lines. You just hit delete grid lines. And then Revit take care of it and bye-bye vertical grids. I'm gonna undo. Select this and edit type and go to the vertical layout. And let's change this to fixed distance. And let's say the fixed distance needs to be 1 feet. And when you hit apply, then I have a new distribution of vertical grids. I can expand this to 8 feet, for example, and then there's 8 feet in the vertical, and then there's a residual panel at the end of the whole system. There's another layout. Let's do the maximum spacing. Maximum spacing up to 5 feet. So that means that there's not a single panel here on the vertical side that's going to measure more than 5. And Revit does the math for you. And so it's equal space. All the vertical panels have the same size. Or you can do minimum space. And that means that this is the minimum size of a panel. There's not a single panel here that measure less than 3 feet. And so you can play with this auto distribution layouts, both in the horizontal and the vertical, to arrive to a design that fits your needs. I guess to comply with the manufacturing requirements, a lot of architects choose to use fixed distance. I think that's probably a very common method. And for this custom CW, you can change it to fixed distance. In the vertical, let's do this 5 feet, and in the horizontal 8 feet. Hit apply, hit OK, and get a new distribution. Any question?
Caesar, I got lost. I got lost when you drew the curtain wall. How do you,
Yeah.
can you show us that again? Thank you.
Sure. Hit the wall tool.
Okay.
And then in the type selector, scroll to the very bottom and pick storefront. And point number 1, point number 2. And that's it. Again, wall in the type selector. Scroll to the very bottom until you get to storefront. And make sure storefront is the current type. Point number 1, point number 2. Now to change the properties, you can change the unconnected height.
Sorry, Caesar. I got to start over. I apologize. I'll do it one more time. Okay,
All right.
wall selector.
Wall.
Yeah.
Type
Just click
selector.
wall.
Type selector is this drop-down list.
Yeah, I'm in there.
And then scroll to the very bottom. Hit the storefront.
Okay, I got it.
And then in the 3D space, pick one point. Just point number 1.
Yeah.
And then randomly pick another point.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. So Jim, to access the layout rules, select the curtain wall and edit the type properties.
Okay, yeah.
And this is going to give you access to the vertical and the horizontal layout rules.
Yeah. Okay, I think I know how to do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so in this type of storefronts, how do we add doors? So there is a door command here under the architectural tab. When you hit the door tool, it comes with a default family. You just select a wall and we'll place the door for you. This is the typical door command. I'm going to undo because that's not what I want. Now, the door command doesn't work for storefronts. Like you try to place an architectural door in a panel. You cannot do that. The door, again, I'm going to write this down because people forget. Architectural doors won't work in curtain walls. What we need to do is to load a special curtain panel that behaves like a door. And then we can swap the panel type in preparation for a door. So let's do that. we go to the Insert tab. And then you're going to load Autodesk Family, which connects us to the cloud-based library of components. And search for curtain, the word curtain. And notice that there are like 4 or 5 different door types that are compatible with curtain walls. And the way to identify them is that they have the word door curtain associated with that. So those are the only doors that will work with curtain walls. So I'm going to bring the single curtain. I can bring multiple. I can bring this one and this one and this one. I can just click on the type, make sure there's a checkbox on the upper left side. And then hit load. And now I have in the project 3 special doors that are compatible with the curtain wall systems. And so if I want to add a door to this wall type here, I have to select the panel and swap it with a door. And I show you already that if you hover over the edge of a panel and hit the tab key, I'll make sure I disable the pick by pin. This is a panel. The panel is pinned because Revit has control of it. Revit is defining what type of panel is that. So what you do is you unpin it. And when you unpin the panel, it releases your ability to change its type. And so I manually unpin it. And then in the type selector, the type drop down, pick the door, curtain, wall, single glass. And make sure you pick the row below this gray one, not the icon one. The icon is just a representation. Just select the row before this one. And boom, that's my door. That makes sense. I'm going to repeat it again. Curtain wall doors act as panels inside Revit. You make sure you will load them. So you go to the Insert, Load Autodesk Family, and in the search cell, I type curtain, enter, and then I pick these 3 types: the door, curtain wall, double, and then the curtain wall, single, and then hit load. After doing that, I hover over a panel, edge. When I am on top of the edge, hit the tab key to cycle on everything that's underneath the cursor. When the panel highlights, click it. You know this is a curtain panel because it will be reporting that information in the property box. Then I'm going to unpin it. And then this unlocks the type selector. Click the type selector and select the door, curtain wall, single glass. And that's going to swap the door in 3D. If you want to flip like the swing of the door, you can do that in a floor plan. So go to the level 1. This is how the door is being represented in a floor plan. And if you select it in plan, it has 2 flip controls: horizontal flip and vertical flip. You can only do that in a projection view. So in a floor plan is the perfect place to do that. That makes sense? Okay, so all right, so this was the easy way of creating curtain walls. All you need to do is to control the layout in the vertical, horizontal, and unpin some, like this mullion shouldn't be there, right? So you can manually delete mullions if you unpin them and delete them. Again, you hover over, select the mullion. You cannot delete it because it's pinned. Unpin it, and then hit the delete key. And now that door is good to go. All right, so I'm going to select the whole thing and delete it. I'm going to show you now the difficult method of creating a storefront, which is this one. You create a gigantic piece of glazing, manually create horizontal and vertical mullions, add mullion profiles to the different mullion orientations, and swap panel types, including doors. All right, let's do this together, guys. Go to the Architecture tab, hit the Wall tool, and then in the Type selector under the Property windows, in the drop-down list, pick Curtain Wall 1. Curtain Wall 1 is the wall type that allow me to do manual and custom curtain walls. Now in the 3D space, pick your point number 1 randomly. Pick your point number 2 again randomly. And then hit escape. This is a gigantic piece of glazing. And now that we need to size it, the size it needs to be. Like you can control the unconnected height as needed. You can also edit the profile. When you edit a profile of a curtain wall, you can override the rectangular shape. For example, I can access the endpoint of one of these sketch lines. And again, rules of sketch lines is that the sketch lines need to be continuous. They don't need to. I have to clean this using the trim to corner. The rules of sketch mode is no closed loop, no overlapping lines. And then hit the green checkbox. I have a different shape. I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to keep it the way it was. It was a rectangular one. I'm just giving you a tip that you could access the curtain wall profile by accessing this button. Edit profile give you access to the wall sketch line. And then you can change its shape. It doesn't have to be rectangular. You can do an L shape curtain wall this way, or you can add arcs if you needed to. All right, this is my gigantic piece of glazing. The next step is to subdivide it using grids. So go to the Architectural tab and hit the Curtain Grid tool. When you hit the tool, here's the thing. To create a vertical line, you have to touch the sill or the head of the curtain wall. Like if you just do it in the middle, it may or may not be. Like if you want to make sure that this is a vertical mullion, touch the header or the sill edge. And now this is not an automatic rule, so you have to adjust it manually. And then after you place them, you can adjust the relative location of a grid line by selecting it and using these temporary dimensions to be very precise about the pattern of grids that you want for these curtain wall. That makes sense? Now let's do the horizontal ones. And the same rule, to create a horizontal grid, you have to touch the jam lines or the jam edges. Architecture tab, curtain grid tool, and then hit the vertical jams. I'm going to do the first one at around 8 feet. Then 3, you can have spandrels. You can design this any way you want according to your building aesthetics. If you need to relocate, select the grid and adjust the temporary dimensions. So in Revit, again, this is another subtle rule. To move an object, select the object. And the reason I'm writing this is because if you select that grid, thinking that you can modify the location of this one, it's not going to work. All you're doing is moving this line. So in order to move the line above, you need to select the line. So I'll select this grid, and the relative location of that grid is 6 feet. Everything you select is movable. So I'm going to return this back to 3. If you want to move the line above, select the line, and then change the relative location. And then make this 6, etc. So the reason this is, I don't want to say it's the hard method, but it's the most tedious because you have to do all manually. This is not responding to rules, to any rule. Any question here? We're good. All right. So grids can be rotated, but the rotation happens across all of them. So if you select the overall system, one of the instance properties of the curtain wall is the vertical angle and the horizontal angle. So try this out. If you select the entire system, and in the instance properties under the vertical grid, change the angle to 30 degrees. And then hit apply. So you can design tilted mullions in the vertical. And then the horizontal grid, the same thing. Angle 30 degrees. Apply. Now I have a system that it's tilted. I'm going to undo. That's one of the options you have ability, but you cannot just rotate one grid. Unfortunately, it's all the verticals or all the horizontal at once. All right, and now the other step is to, now that I have the distribution that I like, then I start adding mullion profiles. So under architecture tab, you see the mullion tool. The type selector will give you access to all the different type of mullion. Now, when it comes to mullions, avoid picking the types that says corner. So every type that has the word corner is intended to be used on corner conditions. So don't use them. These are special profiles that flex at corner conditions. I'm going to show you in a minute. So the only ones you can use are these ones, the rectangular mullion and the circular ones. Those are good choices for mullion. I'm going to stick with the 2.5 by 5 profile. and just start clicking. If you notice in the contextual tab in the upper right side, these are different methods of placing grids. You can do it along the entire grid, or you can do a segment of a grid at a time, or you can apply it to all the grids. So I'm going to enable it again, architecture grid. If I just want one segment of a grid, just click one segment in the choices in the ribbon. Pick it. Actually, this is subdivision. This is sorry, architecture mullion grid segment, grid line segment. And this is just one grid across one panel segment. And, or you can do the entire grid. Or you can do all the grids with the same profile. There you go. That makes sense. These are flexible ways to place different profile for different systems. Like the jam profile may be different from the sill profile, different from the header profile. And you can swap the mullion properties using the type selector. Select the mullion, swap it with 1.5 by 2, for example, or select it and swap it with a circular one. And then you can start designing this, but this is more curtain wall design. All right. So again, the storefront family is the parametrically created curtain wall that responds to layout rules. This is the easy way of creating a curtain wall. The curtain wall 1 family will create a gigantic piece of glass, and then you have to use curtain grids and mullions to manually add them according to your aesthetics. All right, so we're gonna, it's almost 7. I had to rush a little bit. We're going to create a curtain wall for the entry of the Mila house. And when I look at the properties, it's about 10.6 by 7. It has a single subdivision, single mullion subdivision. So it's probably easier to build it using the custom wall, the custom method, and create a 3-foot door with one grid subdivision. So I'm going to create a wall that is 10.6 by 7. Then I'm going to create one subdivision 3 foot away from the jam. Add the mullions, swap the panel with the door, and I should be done. Easy. All right, let's do it. I'm going to do it inside, right on spot. So if you guys want, you can watch me first, and then we'll do it together. Or if you want to follow along, that's fine. But I'm going to do it 2 times. So I'm going to start a wall. And it's going to be in the drop-down families. I'm going to create a storefront. The storefront is going to have a height of 7 foot. So you can change the height in the panel, in the options bar. I'm going to edit the type. Duplicate. And I'm going to call this Mila storefront. Mila storefront. So the Mila storefront doesn't have horizontal grids. So the layout is 0 or is none. And then on the vertical grid, It's a fixed distance every 3 feet. And then I'm going to take care of the other one and delete it. And hit OK. Again, don't worry if you fall behind, I'm going to do it again. And then this is 7 foot high on level 1. First click on the door side. And when I hit 10 feet, I think that's the size of this storefront. Escape. Again, I'm going to select the storefront and use the section box. This is how it looks like. The size is correct, the distribution is not. So I'm going to unpin this panel and delete. Unpin the grid and delete. You see that it says remove segment. I'm going to remove this segment. Unpin, delete. Why isn't it doing it? I think, yeah, I need to, this is getting, the distribution of the grid is being pushed by the fixed distance. So I'm going to change this to none. It's going to delete the grid lines. There it goes. And now that I have this full storefront, I'm going to add a new grid. Architecture, curtain grid, 3 foot away from the jamb. There you go. Delete the molding at the bottom, unpin it and delete. Select the panel and swap it, unpin it and swap it with the curtain wall single glass. There you go. All right, sorry I did this too fast. Let's do it together. So I'm going to select this whole system, delete it, and let's do it together and we'll break the class then. All right, go to the wall. Let's do this together. Go to the wall tool. Let's get started with the storefront. Before I place anything, I'm going to edit the type properties. Edit type. I need to create a new type. So I'm going to duplicate it. Call this storefront dash Mila. This is a new type. I don't want to change the original storefront. Layout, vertical grid, none. Horizontal grid, none. There's no subdivisions. I'm going to manually place one later. The mullions remains as is. And then I hit OK. You got that? You got to edit type, duplicate, rename, change the vertical layout to none, horizontal layout to none, and then hit OK. All right, I got the type to get started. Then on the unconnected height, you can do it right here. Change the height to 7 feet. All right. And then I start with my first click is the jamb on the right. The second click, the jamb on the left. And then hit escape, approximately 10'4". The storefront is created and it automatically punch a hole in the wall. Now select the storefront in the floor plan and let's create a section box on the modify tab, section box. This is gonna create a 3D view where I can manipulate it easier. And then the jamb that is closer to the perpendicular wall, this is the side that's gonna receive a door. So let's create the curtain grid. So architecture tab, curtain grid. And 3 feet away from the edge, you can just visually place it. 3 feet away from the jamb, you create a new mullion. Escape. Then I'm gonna unpin the mullion at the bottom. You're gonna unpin it to delete it. This is the space for the door. And then all I need to do is unpin the panel and swap it. So hover over the edge of the panel. I hit the tab key to cycle. This is the system panel and it's pinned because it's controlled by Revit, but I'm going to unpin it and swap it in the type properties with the door, curtain wall, single glass. And we're done. All right. Who was able to do it? Mafi, Lauren, sort of. Yes, Karina, Jim.
Yeah, I'm close. I'm having trouble selecting just the glass panel.
Yeah, one way of doing it quicker
Yeah.
is yeah, you can enable selection by phase, and I only recommend this if you're doing it elevation.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Actually, I had it enabled. And then hover over and hit tab. Hover over at an edge, and then tab. And once you select the panel, unpin it and swap it with the curtain wall double single glass. And there it goes. All right, disable the section box in the instance properties, and we have a curtain wall to the Mila house on the south side. If you wanna do this on your own and create the other one, which is exactly the same process, go ahead and do it as a homework. Otherwise, I'll do the opposite side and save and upload this in today's date folder. We're gonna pick it up from here on Monday. So I'm gonna delete this curtain wall. It was just a work in progress. Save your work. Again, homework is to create the other curtain wall in the opposite side of the house, right here. And if you want to challenge yourself on doing it, otherwise I'll do it and share with everyone. Again, if you have questions, feel free to stay for a quick Q&A. And if there's no questions, I'll see you guys on Monday. And let me stop the recording.